This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about a long-awaited series finally coming to Steam, Valve's first new IP in many years, IGN buying a bunch of publications, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 33. I am your host, the man who is unavailable for purchase in somewhere around 200 countries, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who now calls himself the Ghost of Baltimore County, Justin, better known as I Am Zeracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
It's been not bad. It's been the week has been slow, and that's partially good. I've enjoyed that. I also was taking over some responsibilities at work for a coworker who was away, but she's back now, so I don't have to worry about. Well, I'm still working on it because I was working with her, but my role has now swapped back to what it was before. Actually, this evening, a group of coworkers and I, we went out to a cafe that's near our office because they have what's called a pastry happy hour. So we went over there, had different pastries. I had something called a crookie, which is a croissant and a cookie combined.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And then I just had a basic iced latte, but it was a good time. I don't really. They've had other outings before. I didn't really go, but also I was busy at the time. But this time I was available, so I said I'll go with them. It was a pretty decent time, so yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah, let's hear what was. Oh yeah, I guess last week was my anniversary, so we didn't do anything like anniversary like on the actual anniversary because even though I had the day off, I had to spend time editing the podcast, and the kids still had school, so my wife was doing their schooling, and then we had the outreach thing on Thursday evening, and dinner we went and picked up dinner right after that, which we got Heroes as you suggested because it sounded amazing, and so we did that. Then we had like our I guess monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, whatever, like church meal, for lunch on Sunday, and just various other things. We did end up doing like a dinner, well, just like an extended afternoon date to celebrate our anniversary a couple days after, so that was fun, and we got some Indian food at a local Indian place, really good. There's way too many things on the menu that were like, man, that looks good, that sounds good, I want to try that, and we just ended up settling on, got some tikka masala and some butter chicken and some naan and what was it? The samosas. But funny thing is, with that, so when we go in there, I ask them, okay, your spice levels, are they Missouri level spice levels? White people spice levels? Because there are some restaurants that they just do it that spice level, or is it Indian level? And said it's Indian level. It's like, okay, great, that's perfect. That gives me a good basis for what I want. And so I said, please, I would like to have medium, because I know that medium is like typically on the Indian spice level, at least in the past, was like the top of my spice tolerance, to where it was like just right. It was just like I could handle it, and it was definitely up there, but it wasn't like my mouth was burning, and it was just like just the right amount of spice for me. The problem is that I don't think he believed that I could actually handle that. because what they gave me for it, I mean, it had some spice to it, but it wasn't anywhere near what I was looking for. And like it was good, but it wasn't spicy, at least not spicy enough for me. So with some of the leftovers, I ended up just adding a little bit of ghost pepper hot sauce to give it the kick I was looking for. But I think next time we go there, I'm just gonna have to be like, first of all, I'll say, I know you think because I'm a white person that I can't handle the heat, but please, give me whatever the middle level of spice is. If what you gave me last time was genuinely your middle level of spice, which I highly doubt, then I want it higher. But if you are going, if that wasn't your middle level, please give me the middle level. Just trust me on this. I'm not going to return the food. Even if it's spicy, I can deal with it. I'm not the typical Missouri person. I grew up with spice. I eat stuff with ghost peppers all the time, even if I don't put a lot in there. Like, I can handle some spice. I can't handle the top of the spice levels that you guys do, but I'm working my way up in that direction, and it's like I really want that. What I'd be really curious about is one of my buddies, who's not white. He's a black man, dark skin, like dark black man. He, like, for him, his spice tolerance is way higher than mine, way higher. And I hope that if he asked for the highest spice, that they would actually give it to him. My guess is that because of the fact that he's not a pale white guy, they would actually give it to him. But I don't know. They just assume that I'm typical Missouri guy that can't handle the heat, and yeah, it bothers me. But either way, I've just decided that next time I go there, if it's not spicy enough, I'm gonna make sure I have that ghost pepper hot sauce with me so that I can make it spicy enough. Either that or just take it to go and then add the spice if I need to after, because I want that heat when I'm having curry. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, that's about all that. Anyway, what? Or go ahead.
I'll say it's actually very interesting because also with me, I actually had to develop my spice tolerance because for a long time, mine was my tolerance level was very low. Mm-hmm. To the fact that one time we went to a restaurant and we had a order to share of chicken wings, mm-hmm. and they were mild. But I thought they were higher than that because I thought I was drinking a whole lot of water and everyone at the table was looking at me. And my immediate family, they said, "Are you sure you're even black?" and it took me a long time. It was probably around when I was, I don't know, maybe 20 that I started to build up my tolerance and start to eat spicier foods. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not doing anything crazy,
right?
But it's something where I can eat spicy foods and be fine with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just very funny hearing that being mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. I just it's hard to convince people that I can handle it, but like I want to convince them. And I mean, I know that my spice tolerance isn't as high as some people, for sure. Like, I know that I'm nowhere near there. For me, like, habaneros are like a good level of spice. Like, I'm pretty comfortable with that level. Ghost pepper, it's like, okay, I can do some ghost pepper as long as it's balanced enough with other stuff. But yeah, it's just there was one time, I think it might have been a Carolina Reaper. I can't remember if it was a Carolina Reaper or a ghost pepper. It was probably just a ghost pepper. But one of my coworkers had some peppers available for people to grab it, and there was I believe it was ghost peppers, and then the other thing was gosh, I can't even remember the name of it, but it's kind of shaped like a hat almost. I can't remember the name of the pepper, but anyway, so I grabbed some of these peppers, and I made the mistake of putting an entire ghost pepper in a breakfast burrito. It was a bit too much, and it was, yeah, I wouldn't do that again. Now, putting some in there, yes, but not that much. It was way too much, and I ended up having to pull some of it out because it was just like, I can't eat this. It's just too hot. And I mean, it's not like I was sweating or anything. It wasn't like, giving me the runs or whatever, but it was just like, I just couldn't handle it because it's like I couldn't taste anything else. All I could taste was the heat and nothing else. And I want to be able to get both, But anyway, nevertheless, yeah. Okay. Anyway, what have you been playing this past week?
All right, well, I'll save the best for last. But I played some Vampire Survivors again because there was a new update, new expansion based on Contra. So I played some of that just to get the new achievements that came with it. So it was pretty fun. They also, in addition to the Contra, they had a special minecart level that was very interesting to play. It's shorter than a lot of the other levels, just because you're really just going around in a sort of like in a racetrack, but the timeline is also shorter. So that was good. Not too much to say about that. I mean, the Contra recreation was very reminiscent of the level because it's Contra, but that was good. I played also a little bit of Helldivers 2, and similar to the first time I played it, no footage just because recording it was definitely a no-go.
Mm-hmm.
I had some issues playing with my friends at first just because I couldn't get into the game, and eventually I realized that it was because my computer, for whatever reason, probably just because it was running on Linux, but it would not allow the anti-cheat to work. So, and whenever I kept starting doing the game, it kept opening a web browser, and I just kept closing it out until I realized that it's trying to get permission to access the anti-cheat. So after I said, oh, let me go ahead and allow it to go through, then I was able to play the game. It definitely had been a while since we had played because I was doing horrible for a while, just trying to remember the controls, and then also we also were setting the difficulty to a higher mission, to more difficult missions, so that also, the first two runs were not, we survived, but it definitely was something there. But it was a good time. And then this odd game came out last week. This, I don't know, it's some sort of game called Ghost of Tsushima. I don't know. It's definitely a very interesting game, and I would say it was worth the wait getting into this game. Okay, I definitely have a couple things to say about just as far as the settings go. So initially when I started the game up, I wanted just to see how the settings were going to go, because partially when I first was going to play the game, I said maybe I'll do a live stream of it. So I was setting up the settings, and for whatever reason at the time, the game, because I disabled I didn't use any sort of upscaling like FSR or anything like that. I just was going to say I'm just going to run it completely straight as is and just change the basic settings, graphic settings. So went in, adjusted some stuff, and for whatever reason, the game was not running well at all, which I thought was weird. Even if I set everything to low, it wasn't doing anything. So I went back, changed it to FSR 3.0, went back in, then I was hitting a locked 60 FPS. Not sure what the reason for that was, and it was doing it that way pretty much consistently. Although when I came back later on, some other time, and went back to the game, it wasn't hitting 60 FPS for whatever reason. And then when I turned off FSR, then it was hitting 60 FPS. So I don't know what's going on with that. But the game played though was definitely good. I really don't know how I could even describe it, because I don't know. It's just definitely very, I won't say unique, but I do like the style of gameplay that is, because I don't know. I really don't know how to pinpoint it. I mean, one thing I'll say though is, which I actually have a question to ask you, because I do like, being able to go straight into a fight, especially when you have the showdowns and you face the enemies and you can like do that. That's cool. The stealth missions are definitely difficult because, at least when I started doing it after the initial one where you have to do it in the story, because a lot of characters will berate you if you try doing stuff like assassinate. And the problem is, I do try to avoid assassinations because apparently a lot of the characters don't like it when you do it.
Yeah.
But when there have been hostage situations, like there was one in a side mission where you have to rescue someone, and you sort of have to go in stealthily. You can't just go in, otherwise they'll try to kill the hostage. So there's literally no way to get through there without assassinating anyone.
Yeah.
So, and because of that, I'm wondering, like, do assassinations affect the outcome of the game? Because it seems like I'm kind of being forced to do that. No,
not at all. Unlike Sucker Punch's previous, unlike the Infamous games where it actually has the karma system, Ghost of Tsushima does not.
Okay, yeah. I guess in that case, I probably won't feel too bad because, I mean, part of the reason I think I'm doing what I'm doing is because between Assassin's Creed games, playing in the past with stealth, and also mainly because of Sekiro, because like that's like it's a big heavily. If you can, just do sneak attacks, like that's great, instant kills. So because of that, I really feel like I am leaning towards doing that when I'm trying to do stealth missions, or even if I'm just going into a base in general.
Right.
I do try to. I mean, of course, if there's an option to go up, do a standoff, I'll gladly do that.
Yeah.
But like if I'm being forced to completely do stealth, I feel like I have to do assassinations, and if it's going to affect how other characters view me, I mean, I wasn't certain if that was like if I should be trying to avoid that or not, or if it was even possible. Now, one thing that I will say that is a bit something that I think is a bit of a difficulty, and I think if they added this, it would probably make things a little bit better, is just because I wish there was a bit of a lock-on system, because sometimes when two enemies are attacking me simultaneously, and if I'm trying to focus on one of them, but then the other one, say, is going to attack me, I feel like it would be easier to dodge, especially since sometimes there might be an object in the foreground,
right?
Like say a tree or something like that gets the way. Because I'm not locked into an enemy, the camera won't reorient itself to help compensate for that. So it makes combat sometimes a bit clunky. But I do think that overall, though, it's pretty good. I do like how you have the different stances that can impact, the type of enemies you're facing, whether it's, swords, shield, spear. Can't remember what the last one's supposed to be. I haven't unlocked that one yet, but I do like that system, that idea. That definitely helps make things more varied instead of something that's more repetitive, because it definitely could be. And I do like the fact that that with the parries, they are a bit more forgiving than, say, like, I mean, of course, it's a different style of gameplay, but as opposed to like Sekiro, where if you don't time your parries perfectly, you're still going to take some damage. Whereas with this one, even if you don't get a perfect parry, you can still parry the attacks. I mean, of course, you're rewarded if you do a perfect parry, because you can enable a counter attack. But I do like that there is a bit more forgiveness there. One thing I will say is I can't remember. Did you say to play it on the hardest difficulty?
I personally think that playing it on hard is the way to go. Lethal is very unforgiving, and I pretty much would say that's only for either people who are very good at the game or who are doing New Game Plus.
Okay. Okay, then yeah, because I couldn't remember if that's what you said or not, and so I wasn't going to discuss the game at all until tonight. So I think what I'll probably do then is definitely do that for New Game Plus, is to go ahead and do it in unlethal difficulty. And I guess one last thing I'll say is I've been playing the game with the Japanese voiceover.
Okay.
And for the most part, it seems good, except for the opening cutscene. It seemed like the audio wasn't matching the mouth movements for a couple places. And I was just thinking, this is like some sort of reverse English dubbing of the original Godzilla films. But yeah, overall, I'm definitely enjoying the game, and yeah, I'm glad that finally get to play this.
Sweet. Yeah. Okay. So, I have one thing I want to say before I ask you a question about your experience so far. One thing I want to say, because I didn't learn this until late into my original playthrough of this game. When it comes to the standoffs, and you have, sometimes they'll fake you out. Watch the feet. That's how you know, because otherwise, especially when you get later in the game, when the enemies are more difficult, sometimes they'll fake you out multiple times, and it's really easy to get fooled. But if you watch the feet, you won't get fooled.
Okay.
It's a super helpful tip that I didn't learn until really late, and I think I was already like either done or most of the way done with the game at that point when I learned about that. It's like, it makes a huge difference. So that'll be very helpful to you. And then my next question was, what difficulty are you actually playing on?
Right now, I was just doing normal, because I wanted to first just to understand the game mechanics and everything, and then once I went through the second time on New Game Plus, then I was gonna say, okay, I'm gonna do it on the difficulty you recommended before, because normally that's something that I'll normally do. Is I'll just go through the game on normal mode, just since like pretty much the baseline difficulty, and then I'll if I'm gonna do it again, I'll sometimes just like up the difficulty in New Game Plus.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I will say, like, because of the fact that I had replayed all the infamous games on hard for the platinum trophies. I mean, this game doesn't have a trophy or achievement associated with difficulty unless they added something for lethal, which I don't think they did. They might have, but I haven't looked closely at that one way or the other. Because I had to play through all the infamous games on hard in order to get the platinums on those, I decided that I would just wanted to play it on hard from the get-go, and then they added lethal difficulty after the fact. So that was my experience with it, and I'll get more into that when I start talking about my experience so far with the PC version. Last question I had about that is, did you try it all on the Steam Deck, or is 45 frames per second just not acceptable for you?
I have not played it on the Steam Deck, and I definitely think that I personally wouldn't enjoy it. I mean, of course, you've mentioned that playing it on a handheld, it's completely different. I mean, like, playing it there on 45 versus on a larger screen is definitely different. I just haven't done it. Like, I mean, I don't think I would necessarily enjoy it because a couple other games like Pal World, I was not enjoying that at like 30 FPS, and then also but Spider-Man, I didn't really care for Spider-Man at 30 either.
The main thing to keep in mind though is that 45 is completely different from 30. It feels significantly better. So I would encourage you to try it. I mean, I can send you some specific settings that I use in order to get a fairly consistent 45. It's not perfect, but it maintains it very well, and it's well worth it, in my opinion. Now, of course, obviously, you can just keep playing it on your main PC, and you'll have a great time with it regardless. But there's that. That reminds me, I actually did have one other question, and that is, did you try... Well, does your computer support the frame gen as an option, frame generation?
I think it does. I just didn't enable it. Does it make any sort of difference? Or okay.
The one thing I will say, and because I can't remember, do you have an AMD or NVIDIA card?
AMD card.
Okay, so I don't know how it is with AMD. With NVIDIA, it works really well. Like, I was going from an average of 70 to 90 frames per second to over 120. And it looked great. It was very responsive. It felt like 120. So it was really good. But the problem is, and I don't know if this is just an NVIDIA problem or if it's a frame gen problem, when you die, you get stuck on a black screen. So I ended up having to, I just turned it off because unfortunately, like, even though it actually worked really nicely, it was, I think that the frame generation, when you get to a black screen, it's trying to copy those frames instead, so it just gets stuck in this loop. And I don't know if it does that on AMD cards, because it is an AMD feature as opposed to using DLSS 3.0, because since I just have a 20 series, I don't have the option of using DLSS 3. So,
Okay.
Anyway, I recommend just trying it out, see if it works for you. Like, personally, what I would say is don't use, and well, of course you said that FSR wasn't working for you in the end anyway, but you can just turn on frame generation separately, try it out, see if it works, and then when you die, you can see if you get stuck in that black screen, because if you get stuck there, then there's no point in having it on, but if you don't, you can probably get a bunch of extra frames out of it, and it could be a really good experience for you. So. But anyway, going into what I've been playing this week, I mean, there's two primary games that I played, but I'll save those for last. I'll discuss more briefly some of the other stuff I played. One of these I don't have any footage. I may add it when I do the final video, but I did play Borderlands the pre-sequel on the Steam Deck, got that recorded, or maybe it was the other way around. That's right, now that I think about it, I remember last week I had played it through it on the Steam Deck and recorded that. And then I did the Switch after the fact. So anyway, I don't have that. I may add it later, but yeah, just did that for the last comparison that I put up. Did play a little bit of Lego Harry Potter and Lego Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm not going to put the footage up because I only recorded one of them. One of them I had to do in our guest room because my wife was doing something on the computer in here and needed basically quiet because she was recording something, and she's doing a parody thing for it doesn't really matter. Anyway, the point is she needed it quiet in here, so I took the kids to the front room. We hooked up the Steam Deck, and I played Lego Pirates with my son in there, and then so I couldn't actually record anything. But then I guess there's no cloud saves for Lego Harry Potter, so I had to just later I was able to play Harry Potter in here with my other son. But yeah, just continuing along, one level for each game, and then moving on from there. But then other things I also played. I ended up getting my physical version of Sifu, so I tested that out a little bit on the Switch, and I recorded some footage earlier this evening. I think it looks better in handheld mode than it does on, I mean, when it's docked. More just because like I guess just in handheld mode it kind of hides more of the flaws, but it's still like it looks good. Even docked, it still looks pretty good. Like it doesn't look obviously as good as it does on the Steam Deck or on PC, but it looks pretty good. I don't know what the frame rate is. I feel like it's kind of an uncapped thing. Like sometimes it's better than others, but there are occasional stutters. However, I wouldn't say that any of the stutters are as bad as they were when I was having the stuttering issues on my desktop. So, but I think that the frame rate is probably lower. It's probably just 30 at best. And well, you know, once again, I can't say definitively because I haven't actually, done any sort of like real tests for it. But, I know I was definitely having a harder time with the parry timing and that sort of thing, just because of the fact that it doesn't run as well as it does on Steam Deck. Definitely a lot more pop in and that sort of thing, particularly just some of the textures. But yeah, it's still pretty interesting. I mean, more than anything, I was just excited because like the physical version came with a steelbook, which of course I always love having a steelbook. Came with an art book, came with some art cards that have various concept art that are also present in the steelbook, and it came with the digital soundtrack, or with a code for the digital soundtrack. And unfortunately, I already have the soundtrack through Steam because when I bought it, I bought the deluxe edition. So I definitely would. And I'm just basically like, if I can find someone who wants the digital soundtrack, I'll just give it away because I don't need 2 copies of it. It's pointless. But yeah, still kind of cool. Seeing that on Switch, I'm looking forward to doing a comparison with that, but I haven't really figured out. I mean, most likely it'll be after I do the 2 Diablo comparisons. So, but speaking of which, earlier today I recorded the first part of the comparisons with Diablo 2 Resurrected on the Switch, and man, I suck at that game. Diablo 2 is so much harder than 3 and 4, and Immortal, yeah, Immortal. It's just like it's definitely more punishing, and it's just harder. So I haven't decided if I mean, I'll probably just keep my footage and just deal with the fact that I die a bunch, and then hopefully do better when it comes to recording for Steam Deck. But yeah, it's just a harder game, harder than the other ones. The other ones are a lot easier, and it's just definitely the systems are considerably more advanced than they are in 3 and 4. I mean, like 3 is like super casual, and personally, I just found it a lot of fun. It's what my wife really, how I got my wife into Diablo, or really how we both got into Diablo. And then 4 is like right in between 2 and 3 in terms of its difficulty, which I feel like is just about perfect. Like it feels really good. But the game does run 60 frames per second, I think almost entirely on the Switch, which is great. 3 does the same thing. It looks a little more blurry for sure, but it's still not bad. And yeah, I mean, like, I don't think it's a bad game by any means. I'm just bad at it. That's really all it comes down to. But yeah, that's going to be the next comparison I do, is Diablo 2 Resurrected. So that'll be, I'll have to record the other half of that probably on Saturday, and then get that video put together on Sunday. But then there's 2 main games I've been playing besides those. The first of which is Death Stranding. And basically it was like, okay, I just got Ghost of Tsushima. I did want to play it a lot, but I also really wanted to play more Death Stranding because this is a game that I've just been kind of getting back into, and of course I really enjoy it. And so I ended up just spending a bunch of time playing that during my free time over the weekend when I wasn't doing other stuff anyway. And yeah, I finally finished up that 3rd episode, and then I went straight into episode 4, which was actually a really short episode. And it actually surprised me because the gameplay was completely different for that one thing. I'm not going to say anything about it beyond that, because anyone who hasn't played the game should just experience it for themselves. But it's like, all I will say is that it proves that the game isn't just a walking/delivery simulator. That's not all it is. Now, granted, yes, you spend the majority of your time walking, driving, delivering goods, all that stuff. And as you do more of the deliveries and everything, you gain more like equipment to make it easier to, like new weapons that you can use against enemies, and the BTs, which are like basically like the main monsters, I guess you could call them, that I've mentioned before. And yeah, I mean, I really love this game, and I want to keep playing it and keep playing it and keep playing it. But I did end up getting sidetracked a bit. In fact, quite a lot. By Ghost of Tsushima. So, man, there's a lot I can say about this port. Now, for starters, I mentioned it a bit earlier, but I'll just, say a bit more. This is a really good port. On the Steam Deck, it's pretty easy to get a near-locked 45 frames per second without much of any sacrifice to the visuals. I mean, it definitely doesn't look as good as it does if you don't use like any sort of upscaling. If you don't use any sort of upscaling, it's really easy to do default settings, get 30 frames per second, and for me that's fine. But I definitely wanted to see if I could find a way to get better than that. And usually, I try to avoid any sort of upscaling, especially FSR, because I really just don't like FSR. But there is the upscaler that's more of an internal upscaling that's separate from FSR that you can use. And using that definitely doesn't hurt the visuals quite as much as FSR does. Because it's not constantly lower resolution. It's just when it's struggling to maintain that frame rate that it will drop the resolution a little bit. But either way, for the most part, it's pretty solid. And I probably played maybe a third of the time that way, something like that. The rest of the time I played on my desktop. When I play with most of the settings maxed out, I think I lowered a couple things, obviously turned off motion blur, things like that. I can get pretty consistent, right around 80 frames per second is pretty average, sometimes a little higher, sometimes a little lower. On rare occasions, it'll drop down to 60, but usually I don't think it really drops below that. Maybe high 50s once in a great while, but for the most part, it stays right at the frame rate I want. It stays above 60. So either way, I'm really happy with the performance. Happy with the visuals for the most part. I do think that some of it hasn't aged as well. It looks good, but sometimes it's a little low poly in terms of its some of the faces, particularly in some of the cutscenes. But either way, it's been really good. I don't know exactly how many hours I have in the game now, but one thing I will say that I absolutely love about this game, and I don't know if you've come across this fight yet, because it's just one that's part of the it's a side fight that's completely optional. It's to get the Heavenly Strike.
Oh, the one where you have to go through it's the one where the cursed bow, is that what you're talking about?
No, is that different? The cursed bow is a separate one, and I did that one as well. But the Heavenly Strike, it's you have to fight this guy, and there's lightning flashing around you. And
okay, I know what you're talking about.
It's an arena.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this fight, when I played this on PS4, I cannot tell you how many times I lost that fight. And reminder, this was same difficulty, hard difficulty, 30 frames per second. When I played this on PS4, I died a bunch of times. I can't tell you how many times I heard, "Lord Shimura should have taught you better," and then stabs me with his sword. And so many times I just raged so much, and I tried it. I stayed up late, I remember, trying to beat this guy. Took me a bunch of tries, and I just could not beat him. And then eventually, came back the next day and was able to beat him. But it was almost making me want to give up on doing hard mode, because the fight was just frustrating me so much. And I don't know what it is. I'm guessing it's just because of the higher frame rate, and because just I played a little bit better, even though I still think I didn't play great when I fought him. But this time, it took me 3 tries, and I beat him. I mean, it's like considerably different there, and most of the times that of the times that I failed, it was primarily just that I dodged the wrong way or failed to dodge when it came to his unblockable attacks. And it's like, okay, parry timing is way easier with a higher frame rate. And I don't know what it is exactly, but the fact of the matter is, the fact that I got through this fight so much more easily just tells me that it's got to be the frame rate that's the main reason, because I know that I don't think I've necessarily gotten any better as a player, but yeah, I just had such an easier time, and I really am glad that I was able to do it as easily as I was compared to previously. And then, I did that also one with the cursed bow, and I mean, that one I think probably took me about the same amount of tries, like 2 or 3 tries to beat him. I think those are the only 2 of those kinds of fights yet. I know that there's like 2 or 3 more of those kinds of fights for, to learn skills or to get an item. I can think of 2 off the top of my head, but I haven't done them yet in, on PC. So either way, yeah, I'm absolutely loving this game. The one problem I always have with this game is that, like, I want to do everything. I want to do the story stuff. I want to do the side stuff. And I'm just spending a bunch of time trying to do all these things. And, like last night I had a choice, because normally Tuesdays are one of the nights when I will do recordings to, for the comparisons. Like I'll try to do at least half of the recording on Tuesday and then the other half on like Saturday. If I don't do them both the same night. And I decided, you know what? I just want to play more Ghost of Tsushima. So I did that instead. And, yeah, it's just been, it's just such a great game. And I genuinely love how great this PC port is. I mean, it definitely performs a lot better than Horizon Forbidden West. And I mean, Horizon Forbidden West is a very good port, for sure. But between the two, like, this one is much better. And of course, obviously, the fact that this one wasn't originally developed for the PS5 is probably a big part of that. And also because the open world is not quite as complicated as Horizon's is. Horizon has a lot more to it. Yeah. Oh, something else I want to note. First of all, a negative thing is that, unfortunately, much like with Horizon, or with Horizon Zero Dawn anyway, it doesn't seem like it's possible to enable gyro at all. Which is like, man, that would be so helpful with the aiming. I mean, at least when you use your concentration to slow down time a bit for aiming, it helps. But I definitely wish I could enable gyro. I tried and nothing worked. It wasn't working. And I had the same problem with Horizon Zero Dawn. Forbidden West, they added gyro as a native thing, so you can use it by default. But yeah. That's the one negative thing I have to say about it. But something else that's positive is, I'm assuming you're playing this with your PS5 controller?
Yes.
Now, I haven't checked to see, because the time that I was playing was before I discovered this, but I haven't checked to see what the default is using like an Xbox controller for doing them, like the gestures to do for like the guiding wind, or for bowing, or for sheathing your, shaking the blood off your sword and sheathing it, because all that's done on the touchpad with the DualSense. You can set it up on your Steam Deck to use the touchpad as well for doing those same functions, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's not set up by default. I don't know why they didn't set it up by default, but they didn't. But it's really simple to set up, and I just like that functionality. I like what Sucker Punch does with the touchpad, and doesn't make it feel like it's completely pointless. So, yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about that.
Okay. And I actually do have a couple questions that
Mhm.
popped into my mind. And actually, I'm glad you even mentioned the DualSense feature because I really was actually wondering how that would even work with a non DualSense controller anyway. Just because it seems like it was kind of needed, especially um, for using special features, especially with like the guiding wind. Like that's something
Right.
that I feel is necessary. And I mean, I don't know if it's also me or something, but for some crazy reason, whenever I keep trying to use my touchpad, it keeps interfering and thinking that it's the mouse, and so it
Oh.
keeps shifting the camera around. So I gotta see if there's something with my settings or something
It's
like
probably
that.
a
because
Linux thing.
That's a possibility there.
Yeah, that's something I can guess. But you probably, I mean, yeah, you would just have to look it up to be sure. I think, if I'm not mistaken, actually, those various gestures, I think what you do is you hold down, since normally, right on the D-pad, or yeah, right. I think it's right on the D-pad is normally what you use for photo mode, or maybe it's somewhere on the touchpad. I can't remember. But anyway, I think how they have it set up instead is you hold down right on the D-pad for the Xbox controller, and then you just move the joystick in the direction that you want to do that action, whether it's the guiding wind or what have you. So, I believe that's how it works. Because I feel like that was one thing I came across initially when I tried it out. But just when I first was playing it on Steam Deck, that's before they introduced the ability to do those things, like during the prologue. And then by the time I actually went back to it, I figured out that you could use you could set the right touchpad or the left touchpad to do those guiding wind features and whatnot. So,
And I didn't notice this, but I wanted to, especially I read the descriptions and it didn't say anything, but I wanted to double check with you. Do the hats or headbands provide any additional like abilities similar to like the
I'm
armor? Because I
pretty sure
didn't
they don't.
see anything. Okay, so it's just purely
Yeah.
cosmetic.
yeah.
Okay, that's good to know because I was trying to make sure just because I want to know if there's any special ability, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess one thing, just because you've completed the game, it's primarily with Sensei Ishikawa and I can't remember her name, but the lady from the Adachi clan. With the story, do their storylines progress or open up as the main story goes along, or is it, or can you just complete it before you say go
Yeah,
back
I mean,
to rescue your
I
uncle?
think most, if not all, of the steps can be completed before you go to the castle at Kaneda.
Okay, because I know that, like, I mean, technically, I think they're recruited or not, or at least they say they'll help
Right.
you, but I wanted to make sure because I'll say, if I need to I'll go and complete their storylines before I go to the castle, but I just wanted to see first. If I miss, especially
you don't have to. I think you can, once they say that they're recruited, then you're good to go from that standpoint.
Okay, that's good to know. Oh, and one last question, just because I was trying to do it, I didn't think I was gonna do it, but I just was gonna do it just for giggles. Is it possible to defeat the Khan, or at least what happens when you can you beat the Khan during the initial encounter?
Yes and no.
Have you done that?
I have
Yes or
not.
no?
I have not. However, I have seen a video online, so you can beat him, but you don't actually beat him. It's still everything still plays out exactly the same way. It's just, I mean, you can whittle his health down to 0 basically, but it doesn't actually kill him. It just basically says he still says that's enough, and then knocks you off the bridge and so on and so forth.
Okay, I was just curious because I know, like, some games they'll do something different if you do
Right.
it. Some games won't. I just want to know, like, what would happen, or if it was even possible.
Right, I was curious about that too. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention, I actually did try out lethal difficulty a little bit early on, but it was just kind of like, for one, I I was so like unfamiliar with like dodging attacks and everything, to where I just was dying way too easily because you basically die in one hit. And then enemies typically die in 2 hits. But mostly I just decided, I think I'd rather just save that for New Game Plus, because I think New Game Plus would be a good spot to do it, primarily because you have a lot more abilities. Yeah, you're still going to go down in the same amount of time, but because you have an easier time dodging, parrying, you have different forms, all that. I mean, one of the biggest abilities, which I don't know if you've gotten it yet, hopefully if you haven't, make sure you get it, is for if you can set it so that if you're holding your block when they fire arrows at you, it'll automatically parry it.
Oh, okay.
You make sure you get that one as soon as you can. It's super helpful, not having to deal with that as much. I mean, granted, when you have other enemies coming at you, you'll still sometimes get hit, but for the most part, if you're holding that block, then they'll fire at you. You'll just parry it automatically, and you're good.
Okay, I'll definitely get that then.
All right. Any other thoughts before we start getting into the news?
We can. I'm good.
All right. So, Valve is going to be putting out a new game, and right now this is just, this isn't like officially revealed. We haven't gotten a trailer or anything like that. It has had different code names such as Neon Prime and Citadel. But there is a lot of new information currently about the game. The name of the game is, the official name is going to be Deadlock, at least according to these supposed leaked details. But unlike many of their previous games, Deadlock will be a 6v6 third-person hero shooter. This game will feature a large map with 4 lanes to attack that have tower defense mechanics as well as various items and abilities to utilize. Deadlock is supposed to have a fantasy setting mixed with steampunk, so magicians, weird creatures, and robots. And they say lastly that the game will feature fast travel using floating rails similar to BioShock Infinite. Of course, Valve has not confirmed anything, has not been independently verified by Insider Gaming, where this article is present. But it's an interesting thought, and without getting too much into it right now, the fact that this doesn't sound like something that is in any way out of the realm of possibility for Valve, considering that they have games like Counter-Strike and Dota and Team Fortress, and this sounds kind of like it's a mix of several different things. So anyway, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it definitely seems like something that is possible. It's definitely within the realms of believability. I know. I'm granted. I'm not the biggest, type of. I'm not the biggest type of. I guess you could say, I don't know if this would be considered PVE. But I'm not the biggest team shooter type of person. I mean, I've played a little bit of very small amounts of Team Fortress 2, and I mean, I played a little bit of CSGO. Granted, most of the time it was just doing the surf maps anyway, but so this definitely is not something for me, because I never really played something like Overwatch or like Valorant or any games like those. So I don't really have too much interest in this, but I'm really wondering though why this type of game, because I mean, the market feels like it's kind of partially saturated. Granted, yeah. I mean, you can say that about a whole lot of genres, but for something like this, which is a live service type of game, I feel like you really have to have people playing this. You can't just treat it like a single player game where even if a lot of people aren't playing, you can still go ahead and play the game. But if the player base drops a ton, then it's going to be harder for people to actually play the game, just because there aren't that many people playing. Also, I feel like, couldn't they technically? I mean, granted, this is going to be, I guess you could say, a revamp and also a combination of stuff done in the past, but why not try to either revamp an existing franchise? Because technically they did that with CSGO. They made CSGO 2. So, why not try to either bring back Team Fortress 2? Team Fortress, maybe, granted, I know why they probably wouldn't do it, because that would mean making a Team Fortress 3, and Valve doesn't do that.
Right.
Because
they can't count to 3.
But, yep. Hey, Square finally learned to count to 3 with Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
But, I don't know why they're doing it. I don't know how successful this could be. Again, of course, this is just a rumor. Nothing concrete has come out yet, but I don't know how this game will fare. Just because I don't know, again, there's a lot of demand, because I feel like partially the hero shooter genre has fallen past its peak. People still play the games. People are still playing Valorant. People are playing Overwatch. People... what's another?
Apex Legends is kind of
Apex
that way.
Legends as well. So I feel like... I feel like a lot of it's already gone. Like, people are doing other types of co-op games. Like, I know that you have the different... that I already feel like it's already starting to die off as well. But with the, I guess you could say the team haunted house type of games where, you play with friends online and you have to go into houses and, catch ghosts or stuff like that. That, I feel like, is something that is currently rising on a trend. Granted, it's not as big as the hero shooter trend, and I feel like that also is partially pretty much has gone as high as it can get before dropping. But I don't feel like the hero shooter genre is as big as it used to be.
Right.
Even when it at its peak, because you had more games. I can't remember what the one game was, but there was a game that was that Cliff Belinsky made. I can't remember what it was called.
Jawbreakers, is that the name of the one?
That's it.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, that was still in the peak of the hero shooter craze, and that, fell off quickly.
Right.
So I don't know how a game like this, when the genre has gone as high as it can go, is gonna fare. But I could be wrong. But I also feel like Valve could possibly have made any other type of game. Maybe even something. They don't have to, but I feel like they could have made a single player game again.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I obviously have zero interest in playing this game. Probably below zero interest. Like you, I played the tiniest bit of Team Fortress 2, and that was basically just when I first got the orange box. Name of our podcast, of course. Back in, 2010, probably. And I didn't even do online. I just did, with bots, for a brief bit. And it's just kind of I could see why it would be fun, but I don't really like that style of game very much. And with this, it's I think that it definitely has the potential to be really big, particularly because it's made by Valve, and typically Valve's first party stuff does really well. You look at Counter-Strike is still the top Steam game, and it's been around forever. You have Dota, that's also a really big one. And it seems like, in general, yes, I would agree that the hero shooter genre is very... it was very saturated. Now it's shrunk down significantly. So I think the simple fact that Steam is the kind of platform it is means that this has a better chance of success than many other ones do. Because we know that Valve does a good job supporting their games. And of course, Steam is a great platform. We know that they're probably going to make this well optimized to run on the Steam Deck. There's various things with this that make it to where I think that there's a lot of possibly good things with it. And I do think that it can be successful even if it takes time. And I mean, Steam is, such a ginormous platform, easily the market leader on PC because of how great their storefront is. Plus the Steam Deck and everything else. So I think that even if this doesn't take off initially, they could continue to support it over the years, and it could just end up being really great in the long run, really popular. Is it ever going to hit the popularity of Overwatch? I don't know, but I mean, even Overwatch is significantly declined from where it was during Overwatch 1, because Overwatch 2, they changed a lot, and I mean, I still, hear plenty of people that, play Overwatch 2, but it's not as big as Overwatch 1 was. And anyway, all that being said, I think that this could be successful. We'll just have to wait and see. I know I'm not going to play it. I have no interest in it at all. And yeah. I would love to see a Half-Life 3, but that's probably never going to happen. Portal 3, that one I don't think is needed necessarily. I mean, like, I would certainly take it if they gave it to us, because I love Portal, but Half-Life 3 I think is much more like they should have done that already. Of course, I just wish that they would have made Half-Life Alyx not a VR exclusive game, because that was something I very much wanted to play, but it's like, I'm not getting a VR headset for just that. No thank you. Eventually I should replay those games though, or at least replay 2. And maybe eventually go back and redo Black Mesa, because I got in on Black Mesa, which is the Source remake of Half-Life 1, fan-made remake of Half-Life 1. I got into that before the game was actually completed, so I mean, it was completely free, but it went through everything up until you get to go into Zen, and so I've never done that last portion of the game. And I mean, now I have, the full game. I haven't tried going through it in probably 11 years. I think that was when it originally came out, when the incomplete version came out. So, anyway. All right, any other thoughts on that before we move to the next topic?
No, sir.
Well, speaking of big online games, Helldivers 2, of course, it still has not been added back to the majority of places it was pulled from. But the plus side is that it has had its restrictions removed in various American territories, at least, which is American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. It's probably just because of the fact that those were all connected with the U.S. However, it's still a number of territories that more people are going to be able to play again, be able to buy the game still. Of course, we have no idea about whether or not it's going to be added to other, added back to other territories for purchase. But your thoughts?
It's definitely great that this has happened, and I really feel like this is something that should have happened sooner. And I also might not happen, but I do wish that Sony would also do the same thing with all the other countries that have been, the game's been delisted from. And as you've mentioned, and as the article mentioned, it's most likely just because of the fact that these are American territories, and that's why they did it. But it's good that more people are able to play the game, and that's great. But this is just like a very small step in as part of the larger picture. And I mean, I don't think I saw it in the article whether or not, whether it was still granted they probably still have the requirement for playing on playing with crossplay or stuff like that. But I feel like if they're just going to do the same thing where you can play the game without the PSN account as long as you're not doing crossplay, I feel like they should just go ahead then and open that up to the rest of the world, because you can still play the game without it. So if the problem was the fact that people couldn't make PSN accounts in the other countries, and that's why you pull the games from those areas, then why not just go ahead and let them do it and play the game, and even though they can't play crossplay in those countries. Like, it's definitely, the options definitely there. I mean, people are still playing it without using it. I'm playing the game without using a PSN account, so
yeah,
I just wish that they would go ahead and do it. But at least more countries are able to play the game again, so that's always good, at least.
Yeah, definitely hoping that trend continues, and not just in US territories, because it doesn't seem all that significant when it's just places connected with the US. So, but anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic here. So, I guess first I want to just mention a very positive thing, which that is the fact that Ghost of Tsushima is topping the sales charts for PlayStation ports to PC. This is actually, with the exception of Helldivers 2, because obviously Helldivers 2, that was a day-and-date release, but this is actually sold better than God of War did. And that was, up to this point, the best selling of the single-player games that came out, after day and date. Had all-time high of 77,000 concurrent players, which is very good. Obviously, it would probably be a lot higher if it was actually listed in all the territories where they pulled it, but either way, it's a positive thing. I mean, obviously, we just want Sony to relist the game elsewhere, but of course, as long as they're having this PSN requirement, it's probably not going to happen. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of... I mean, I feel like it's definitely a bit of a surprise, considering the fact that this is a new IP, and to overpass God of War.
Right.
Granted, I mean, some people may or may not have wanted to play it just because the gameplay style was different from the original trilogy, so that might have had an impact, maybe or not, but it still is an established franchise. So to overcome God of War, that definitely is a pretty notable feat. Even if, and like, again, to be the top single player Sony game definitely also is good. I'm hoping that, Sony sees this and thinks, maybe we should definitely release games sooner than, what we originally stated. Maybe this is going to further incentivize them to do that. That would be great. I would love if they would do that. So, I mean, they definitely have been considering it, especially, and I'm definitely with Helldivers 2, even though that was a multiplayer game, like, that definitely would put thoughts in their mind. But to see that this is another game, a single player game, and to just like top all the other games is definitely something I think would be noteworthy for them. And I mean, hopefully though, they definitely might do it, but hoping that they won't try to push the PSN requirements. They probably will, but I'm hoping they don't try to do that with more games, even though seeing the success of Ghost of Tsushima and think, okay, people are going to buy the game. Maybe we can still try to push the PSN requirements, even if we can't do it in these countries. But definitely good to see that, the game is doing well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing right here is, obviously, I think it's positive because it's a great game. I thought, one of the reasons why it might be that it has sold better than God of War is partially because of the fact that God of War has the issue of being technically God of War 4, even though there's, of course, the in-between games as well. So some people didn't want to play it because of the fact that, they wanted to play the previous games. They don't like starting all the way at this one. And I totally understand that, totally respect that. Personally, I started with this one, and the reason I started with it and didn't play the previous ones was because I knew that this one, the type of themes were something that I could really relate to, being a father with boys and everything else. And of course, the fact that this one doesn't, the previous games had lots of nudity, sex, all that kind of stuff, and this one has none of that whatsoever. So Ghost of Tsushima, the reason why I think that it is selling better is, number one, because of the fact that it is a fresh IP, first game in what will presumably end up being a series, assuming that Sucker Punch is working on the second game now, which hopefully that's what they're working on, even though I'd be totally fine with them doing another Infamous. But then on top of that, because I think that games that are either made by Japanese, are Japanese made, are anime style, are just Japanese culture kind of games, I think that typically the audience on PC is much more in that vein. Those types of games sell better on PC than they do elsewhere. In other words, we have a lot of weebs on PC. That's just really what it comes down to. We have a lot of weebs, whether it's anime related or just Japan related. So very likely that's a big part of it. But I wish that Sony would just relist the game, or even if they didn't do it at a discount. They should do it at a discount for people who can't play Legends because they can't do the PSN stuff. I wish they would relist the game, because a lot of people would still buy it if they could just play the single player, because that's what most people want it for anyway, and the single player is incredible. I haven't touched the multiplayer yet. I want to. I do want to play it because it looks really cool, and I've heard really good things about it. But even if I didn't have that, I enjoyed the game without it. It's a fantastic game. So, yeah. Oh, there was one thing I was gonna say. Shoot, what was it? Something else about. Oh, so the PSN trophy integration. Something I forgot to mention when I was talking about Ghost of Tsushima. Although it does pop the trophies, at least when you're playing on Windows. If you play on Windows and you have a PSN account linked, it will pop the trophies. Any achievements you earn will pop the corresponding trophy at the same time. Unfortunately, and this is just a thing for me, it doesn't do the trophy sound effect, and that irritates me, because it's that's one of the best things about the trophies is that sound effect. And yes, I know it's the what you call it, Pavlov. The bell of Pavlov's dog, But yeah. Anyway, it's minor. It doesn't really matter, but it does take away from the joy of getting those trophies if you can't do it. And the launcher itself, or the overlay, is extremely bare bones. I wonder if anyone has contacted Sony and said, "Hey, can you add the trophy sound effect for when the trophy goes off, or can you do a little more with this? Because this is just the most basic thing I've seen. It's more basic than the PSN app, or than the PlayStation app that you can get on your phone. It's just super duper basic and kind of okay, yeah, the trophy pops and that's all well and good, but I'd kind of like to have a little more to it. It feels very, I don't know, I guess clunky. It's not smooth. But anyway, And that's all I have to say about that. Good thing that it's topping sales charts, and I hope that Sony gets the message and uses this as further reason to do day and date PC versions. So, all right. Any last thoughts on that topic?
No, sir.
All right. Do you want to talk about this Microsoft AI topic?
Sure. So, an article came out from Windows Central, and it's mentioning that Microsoft is considering implementing AI, specifically its Copilot AI, features into Xbox, Minecraft, and other Xbox PC games. And it has also put out a demonstration for how that's going to work. So basically, what's going to happen is that the Copilot's going to be in Microsoft games, and what's happening is players will be, as this article, players will be able to use the natural language to ask questions like, how do I craft a sword? And the Copilot will search your chests and inventories for the necessary materials, or guide you to them if you don't have them. It'll also explain how to craft the item and so on, eliminating the need to Alt-Tab and read a website for guides, for online guides. And one thing Microsoft has said is that they've made a large emphasis on privacy as well, claiming that data used via these new AI PCs will remain on device and won't be uploaded to the cloud or used to train language models without consent. And the article also mentions, we'll believe that when we see it. But then also Microsoft has been criticized across the board for its approach to privacy in Windows 10 and beyond, so we'll see what happens. And also, one last thing that the article mentions is that concern about what does this mean for game guides, because of the fact that the AI will pull information online, especially from social media. So what does that mean for video game or websites, especially for ones with guides, where it's hard to where you need to sort of like say have monetization just to keep your sites running? How's that going to impact them? So before I get into this, because I've got quite a few things to say, what are your thoughts on this?
The idea of it in a perfect world is a cool idea. That being said, we don't live in a perfect world, and corporations want to take our information as much as they can. They say that it's all set to local machines, and that it's, it stays on the platform unless you give consent. But how much do you want to bet that in the terms of service, it's going to have something about giving consent to use any information they pick up via microphone at any time? I very seriously expect that is going to be in the terms of service, and then they're going to say, well, you gave consent, you agreed to the terms, and they're going to use it for a variety of purposes. It can be stuff like simply just advertising to you, which, okay, I don't like it, but it's not the worst thing in the world. However, I could see it very easily being, they monitor your conversations. If the AI happens to pick up a certain word that you say, like let's say that it's someone who says, we're not even talking about like racial slurs or like slurs against, people of different sexualities or whatever. Not even necessarily that. Just something that is currently, like current day, not politically correct. I could very easily see it end up being a situation where, even if it's stored on the system, the AI picks up that you said a word or a series of words, or something that it interpreted as these specific words. And then even though it doesn't send that information directly to Microsoft or whatever, like all of it, it just automatically bans your account. Or that they basically send, hey, Microsoft, they said this word. They're not sending all the information, but they are sending, basically a notification. This person said this naughty word, and so therefore we have to ban their account. I could see that kind of thing happening. Now, of course, it'll be a matter of what do the terms of service say. But I don't trust them at all. I think that it's basically just giving them permission to spy on you like the Kinect was. Because that's basically what it was. It's like, I mean, granted, it won't be necessarily as bad as the Kinect because it's only voice and not voice and video. But even so, it's like, I don't like this at all. I think it's bad. I mean, like I said, in a perfect world, in a world where they actually like legitimately care completely about the consumer's privacy, all of that, you know, it could be a very good thing, very helpful. You know, when you get stuck in a situation, you don't want to have to manually type everything in. You don't want to alt tab out of stuff in order to find what you're looking for. You can just say, hey, you know, Copilot, can you tell me, you know, how to get to this location or what I need to do to complete this particular quest, you know, that sort of thing. But I don't trust them. That's about all I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft definitely has been going more heavy on the AI lately. I mean, with an upcoming Windows 11 update, like it's going to implement AI into the OS, and it's like you have to jump through a whole lot of hoops just to be able to bypass that. But they're pretty much forcing AI into it, and now with this, I mean, sure, it's optional. But I mean, like, at what point will they just like put Copilot right on for your games and like not have to do that? I mean, and going further to your point, like, you might even say something that out of context, you know, you might say something which might not necessarily be like trying to be offensive or anything like that, but just like something out of context. Like, say, for example, I don't know, like you're just doing something on your computer and something happened, like maybe say like your mouse or keyboard isn't working. You're saying this thing is acting so stupid, and you know, what if Copilot hears that and it's like, this player was harassing someone online. They called them stupid and stuff like that. I'm just like, something like that could happen. I mean, especially since I can't. Oh yeah, there was and I mean, it's definitely something that could happen because it happened with Amazon one time where someone's either Ring or something with their smart refrigerator picked up something the owner said and thought they were I can't remember what it was, because it wasn't even something they were saying that was being offensive, or it wasn't even a slur, I think, but for some reason Amazon flagged what they said and terminated like their access and all the features they had just because of that. And the person tried to contact Amazon, and like Amazon would not work with them, and they lost access to their account. So like, definitely something like this could happen with Copilot. I feel like it's definitely something that can happen there. Personally, even if we were lived in a perfect world where, as you mentioned, you know, it worked and you have to worry about this, personally, I would not use this type of thing. I'm really, I guess you could say, old-fashioned. I don't mind, and I sort of prefer going online, just typing in a search bar, hey, I need to do something like this, especially if for whatever reason, and primarily this is just to help me get back, for example, with like Souls games, because if I'm trying to do a quest line for a character, I, you know, really just need to know, like, what do I do, where do I go for this? And like, I don't mind, especially since I sort of prefer to have like a guide up hand on the side just so I can see it, and you know, just make sure I know that I'm doing the right thing and don't mess up, because if you mess up in a Souls game with character progression, you're gonna have to start the whole game over again to get it right. So I prefer doing it that way. I really wouldn't care, even if it's something like in Minecraft, for something like how do you craft a certain item, for something like that. Like, I still feel like something like that, I would just rather still go ahead and search online for get the answer, and that's it. And I mean, granted, you know, as stated in the article, what happens because Copilot is going to pull a lot of information online, and especially with like social media and stuff like that. how will that impact stuff like game guide wikis and stuff,
Mhm.
because that'll definitely have an impact. Because I mean, online guides killed like physical strategy guides
Yeah.
and like cheat guides and cheat codes and stuff like that. And Copilot could possibly do the same thing to online guides,
Yeah.
which is wow. I mean, I still have my old cheat book from like 2007. But yeah, it's definitely not something I'm fond of one way or another.
Right. Yeah, I actually still have a bunch of strategy guides on my shelf. I've even bought some recently. Like, I bought strategy guides for Metal Gear Solid 2, 3, and 4. And let's see here. I can't even remember if I actually... yeah, I think I did. I definitely used the one for 3 and for... to a lesser extent for 4. I didn't do one for 5, even though I still wouldn't mind having that, just because I like having actual physical strategy guides. One of the things that's nice about it is that sometimes it's just like you can find the specific spot where you are really easily, and then you can look up things. I mean, there are occasions where the information is incomplete in a physical strategy guide, and then looking online is a little easier, and sometimes that's just better to do that. Like, I can't think of any specific examples, but I still like having a physical strategy guide, even if I don't use it every single time, just because I'm old school, I guess. But yeah, either way, I don't trust this. I mean, realistically speaking, even if I don't have a physical strategy guide, because a lot of games don't even put them out anymore, at least not other than like fan-made ones, which are usually just garbage. I mean, like, I have my phone. I can easily look stuff up if I need to. If I have a game in a windowed mode to where, like borderless window or whatever, and I can just move my mouse over to my other monitor, type in whatever I'm looking up, and go back. That works too. So either way, I don't like all this emphasis on AI and just the rush everybody is with, the rush to get AI involved with stuff, especially because of the field I work in. Part of a big company that a lot of people in a lot of different departments are wanting to utilize these AI tools. And one of my main job responsibilities is vetting different vendors to make sure that they have security features that are going to be helpful. Because most people, they'll sign up for something, they won't read the terms of service, they won't look at anything at all. They'll just go straight into it without even considering what potentially is information that vendor might have access to, or other issues with the agreement that you're signing. And granted, I'm not reviewing all of that stuff. A lot of that goes through our legal department, but when it comes to the privacy and security side of things, there's definitely situations where I'm usually looking at that kind of information. Like, a great example, there's this vendor that a number of people have wanted to use. I'm just going to straight up say the name of the vendor. It's called KuTools. I can't remember the actual... I think KuTools is they're doing their DBA, they're doing business as name, but this is a vendor which I believe is probably based in China, which is already a bit of a red flag. But they say, everything seemed relatively fine as I was going through the vetting process. Didn't really come across any red flags. Apparently they, at least from everything I could tell, there was nothing to indicate specifically that they have any access to personal information. However, one of the things within their terms of service, they say that you can view our credit policy. The credit policy is available upon request. So we requested it, and they're just kind of dancing around it, and they won't actually give it to us. We try for months to get this. They will not give it to us. And it's not like they're saying no, they're just not even addressing the question. So then comes up again later. I mean, so we basically, this vendor, we say, okay, it's just kind of a red flag. It's concerning that they're not willing to give us this information, even though they say it's available. And obviously, it's probably because they say it's available because most people don't even ask for it. But they never intend to actually give it to you. So then some other people there's more people who are wanting to use this vendor. And so I get a closer look at some of the terms on their site regarding in their privacy policy. And they say that, we only access personal information your information that we need in order to make our services better. Okay. Then their FAQ, they specifically have a question: what personal information do we have access to? And they completely dance around the question. They don't answer it at all. They're just like super sketchy. And while yes, the AI side of things, it's not necessarily like all going to be like that. There's a lot of them that are completely harmless. There are plenty of situations where they'll have something hidden in their terms of service, in their privacy policy, etc., where they just have, you're giving them a lot of access that you wouldn't necessarily want to do, especially when you're doing it for a big company with a lot of clients. It has client information, it has corporate information that, if it gets out, could be detrimental from a wide variety of things, could open up to all sorts of legal issues, etc. It's just super concerning. And with these AI things, there's so many of these things all popping up right now. And there's so many of them where it's just like, but do we know what they're actually saying? What is it? What information do they have access to? I came across another tool that's like, it had full access to your Outlook calendar. And whether or not that's an issue may not be. But when there's confidential meetings and things like that going on, there might be some information within the Outlook calendar that's potentially like, you don't want this spread around because it could cause all sorts of legal issues from that standpoint. And, it appeared to just be, it's just a free plugin for Zoom. It's like, well, if the product is free, then you're the product. That's how it works. And anyway, I've gone enough on a tirade about that. All that being said, I'm not a fan of this idea, and I think that it's dangerous. Any other thoughts on that before the next topic?
Nothing else from me.
All right, so we have a very positive thing for PC gamers. So last week, of course, we were talking a bunch about, Square Enix wanting to go aggressively multi-platform, and we were wondering, okay, is that going to include stuff from the Epic Games Store? And sure enough, this week we had the official announcement that the entirety of the Kingdom Hearts series is finally coming over to Steam 5 years after it first came to Epic Games Store. I am ecstatic about it. Now, granted, I'm not going to play the majority of these games because I've already played them. The only things that I really want to play are the prologue, which is like, it's a very short thing. It's like 2 hours long, which is like Kingdom Hearts 0.2 prologue thing, whatever. I don't know what it's called. And then Kingdom Hearts 3. But we're finally going to have an official way to get these on Steam, which of course makes it a lot easier to play in general because you don't have to deal with Epic, but also makes it easier to play on Steam Deck, and without having to have Windows or having to jump through the hoops to get the Epic Games launcher working. And yeah, so your thoughts?
Ask and ye shall receive. Man, some people would say, Square finally decided to make a PC port of Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
It's definitely something very interesting to see. And I also thought it was interesting the fact that it seems to be that there's a Steam exclusive Keyblade as well. So that definitely was, I mean, it's not much, but it's a nice little bonus for people who care about that. I'm very interested in seeing what the pricing is going to be like.
Right.
I mean, considering how long we had to wait for this, they better not be charging some absurd price like $60 per collection. I mean, if they said $60 for 1.5 plus 2.5, the Dream Drop Distance plus the 0.2 Prologue collection and 3 plus the DLC, I can accept that. I can accept that. I can accept $60 for those 3 bundles. But if they're charging $60 per collection, that's insane. That's definitely a lot. One thing, I mean, granted, this could still all change, but something I thought was very noteworthy, at least as of the time when I saw the Steam pages go up, it doesn't seem like there's anything like Denuvo or any sort of like DRM for that. So that's very interesting to see. I mean, I'm definitely, it definitely seems like that's definitely a plus, and I hope that it stays that way. And I mean, obviously, especially based, I mean, I went, just out of curiosity, I went to see what the system requirements were. Obviously, this is something that could be played on the Steam Deck, I can definitely say. It's gonna be very good. I mean, June 13th is right around the corner. Definitely gonna be a good time there. Only thing I will say is I'm just hoping that one thing I'm waiting for is for Sony, I'm sorry, not Sony, Square to backtrack on their stance with NFTs, just because that is the primary reason why I stopped having interest in buying their games, because I did not want to help support and fund them doing that. So I'm just waiting for them, because they said that they're considering a lot of stances, especially with multi-platform being one of them. So I'm hoping they're looking at that, because I don't think that what they've done so far has been really successful. I could be wrong. I haven't looked at like financial statements to see how that division's doing, because I even think they were going to make a full NFT game. So like, if it seems like it's not doing well, hopefully they're going to backtrack on that stance, because they initially, even after the backlash, when they mentioned that, they pretty much just doubled down, said, yeah, we're definitely doing this, guys. And hopefully that's another thing they're reconsidering, because if so, then I will definitely buy the collection, especially 3, because 3 is definitely the one that I've wanted to play the most, because I played all the Nintendo ones, the original Chain of Memories, 358 Over 2 Days, Recoded, Dream Drop Distance. I did all that, and years later, since I didn't have a PlayStation, I went and got the original PS2 versions of Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 2. Play those on there, and I started Birth by Sleep, but I never finished that. Partially just because for some reason, the American version, the camera wasn't working. No, the saves weren't working in the emulator, but the Japanese Final Mix version was working, but I never finished that. So, I mean, I would still go back and replay those games, especially since for Kingdom Hearts, especially for most of them, I didn't play the Final Mix versions fully, if at all. So I would definitely want to go and do that. But I definitely really wanted to play 3, because after playing through most of them, I wanted to get closure with the story. I mean, granted, it's still going on. They're still going to be making 4 and whatever new storyline. But I wanted to finish the Seeker of Darkness chapter. Right. Because Kingdom Hearts has gone a long way. It's had its ups and downs, but I really loved it. And the series as a whole, it's something that my friends and I from way back in high school, like, it's something that we really probably, like, one of the things that really bonded us initially. I mean, granted, there were other things we had in common, but Kingdom Hearts was what really, what we talked about a lot, and discussed and played the games and stuff. So it's something that we really all shared and we really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed. So especially having to wait years because, waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3 and it's like, when's it coming? It's not coming. We've got this game coming out. Okay, is it coming now? No, it's still waiting. And then Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming, guys, and okay, is it coming out yet? Nope, keep waiting. Coming out yet? No, keep waiting. Okay, now it's coming out. And at the time, I almost was considering buying a PS4 just to play Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, that's how much I really wanted to play the game.
Yeah.
But like, I never got around to buying it. And then eventually, when it was announced coming to PC, I was like, all right, cool. And I'm like, Epic, I really don't want to touch that. So I was like, maybe I'll wait. I'll wait for Sony to, I want to keep saying Sony, Square to bring it to Steam because it's definitely possible. I feel like they would do it. It took a while before they do it, but even before then they announced they were doing NFTs, and I was like, I really feel like personally, I personally can't support this, so even if it comes over, I won't buy it. So now that's coming back, like, a lot of feelings I had for the series are coming back, and I'm just really wanting to get back into it because I really enjoyed the series, and it's meant a whole lot. So like, I just really want them to backtrack because the moment they say we're not doing NFTs anymore, I will buy Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, even if it's not on discount, like, just because I really want it, I will go ahead and do it. But still, at the end of the day, though, I am very glad this is coming because this is something that should have happened a long time ago. And I'm definitely hoping that Square, is definitely not going to do this anymore. It definitely seems like it because, they said we want to focus on multi-platform, so no more Epic exclusives. And it's not that I even want games to just be only on Steam. Like, games can be on Epic. I have no problem with that. Just don't make it an exclusive. That's pretty much the gist of it. Like, if everyone can play, everyone wins. Like, even for the people who are Epic fanboys, like, they should be able to play this too. Just put it everywhere on every platform.
Agreed. Yeah, I definitely need to see the pricing. I think the most I'd be willing to spend for all of the games combined would be maybe $90, but that would have to be all of them in a single package, and even then, I'd rather do 80 or less. Ideally, I would love to just be like $60 for all of the games combined. That would be perfect. Like, I would be super happy with that. I'd even be happy with 70. Be like, okay, you got 40 for, you got 40 for Kingdom Hearts 3, and then for the other collections, if you buy them all together, then they come out to be $10 a piece for those other ones, and it's like 70 total. I'd be totally fine with that, even though I know I'm not going to replay most of those. I still would like to have them. I definitely have to say, though, of those ones, obviously Kingdom Hearts 3 is number one priority for you, understandably. I'm with you on that. I want to play the prologue first because I know it's not very long, and I liked Aqua as a character in Birth by Sleep, and of course it's, the first HD foray for the series. But Birth by Sleep is super worth playing because it's a fantastic game. You do it 3 different characters, and my personal thought is the order to play them in is Ventus, then Terra, then Aqua. I think playing them in that order is that should be the canonical order of playing those stories. Especially because the fact that, Ventus looks just like Roxas, and so you got that was for me, that was my number one reason for starting with him, because it's just I'm really curious about why he looks like Roxas, and yeah, it's just, I mean, it's, convoluted Kingdom Hearts Nomura storytelling. I mean, of course, but that was the last one where the storytelling was actually still really good, and Dream Drop Distance I thought just went a little off the rails, more than usual. But of course, the fact that just they had a million spin-offs in there, plus the additional ones that they've done that are like cell phone exclusive, and all those other weird things that they have in between. But either way, I very much want these games, and I mean, if they're really expensive, then I'll just limit myself to buying the ones that I'm definitely going to play, and then holding off on the rest until they're discounted. But if they do a good bundle for the entire collection, good bundle price, then I'll be willing to get it day one. Because I want to communicate to Square Enix that it's like, this is something we've been asking for. I want you to understand, from my perspective, this is something we want you to see how valuable it is to put this on Steam, because I think it's going to sell like gangbusters as long as they don't overcharge for it. Even if they overcharge for it, it's still going to sell like gangbusters, because PC gamers, especially people who dislike Epic, have been asking for this forever. And the fact that it took 5 years to get off of Epic Games exclusivity to be available on Steam is just ridiculous, but I'm just glad it's finally happening. I mean, I haven't been in a point for a long time where I was like really tempted to buy it on Epic, but I'm definitely glad I waited. So,
question: did Final Fantasy VII Remake not sell that well on Steam?
I think it sold pretty well. I mean, I'm pretty sure it sold better on Steam than it did on Epic. But I still think that with Kingdom Hearts, this could be a further way to communicate, because that was exclusive to Epic for a much longer time.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I'm sure obviously there was contractual reasons why it was on Epic exclusively for such a long time, but either way, I think it's gonna sell really well on Steam. As long as they're not ridiculous in the price. If they charge, I could almost see Square Enix having the balls to charge $70 per game.
Oh gosh.
I could see them doing that, and I mean, be like, I'm not spending that much.
I mean, I feel like they should at the very least match what they have on Epic, because I can't remember what the price is. I don't think it's $70 per.
Let me look that up.
Entry, actually, from at least from what I saw initially, but it's been a long while since I've seen that announcement. But I feel like at this point though, enough time has passed where it's been on PC that the price should theoretically drop. I mean, Square's done that with other games, like they did it with Nier, where they dropped the standard pricing. They've done that with
a
couple other
fantasies. I was wrong about the amount of time. It took 5 years from the time it released on PS4 and Xbox One to come to Steam. It's been 3 years since it went to Epic.
Okay.
But
felt longer.
The price currently on Epic for Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 Remix, it's $50. For 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, which I believe is just Dream Drop Distance and it's Dream Drop Distance, the prologue, and like some cutscenes. Basically, it's $60. Kingdom Hearts 3 with Remind is $60. And then they also charge $60 for Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. I mean, like, why are you charging $60 for that?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Do they have the like a bundle on Epic? Because I know that they have that mentioned for Steam. Like, it's called the interim something bundle.
Let me see what I can find here. I mean, it seems like there should be. Even if they do, I'm sure that probably, because of the way that the Epic Games store is laid out, it's very difficult to find.
Oh, of course.
But, yeah, like, I'm trying to find something that actually has a bundle, and right now I'm not seeing... Okay, so here we go. Here is the... Okay, never mind, that doesn't give me that. It doesn't give me a bundle price, it just has a page that lists all the different Kingdom Hearts games. That doesn't help me.
Wow.
Let's see. Kingdom Hearts Collection. No.
Okay, Instagram Masterpiece. That's what it's called.
Okay, so I'm sorry. What's it called?
Instagram Masterpiece. INTEGRUM.
Making up words like usual. No, they don't even have it listed on here. But
wow.
Well, I guess we'll see what they decide to do. I'm hoping that it's a decent price, because that's just too much. Like, I'm not spending $60 on.
I mean, granted,
I mean, $60 for Kingdom Hearts 3. Okay, I'm more willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I still don't want to spend that much, I still think that's too much for a game that's 5 years old. But of course, at that point, I'd probably just buy it, through one of the third-party key sites instead.
That is true.
The 2.8, that's too much.
Yeah,
because
that's
basically
you're
you're getting one game, basically. I mean, like 1 and a tenth of a game, because the prologue is very short.
Now, one thing that is very interesting is that I just saw this one in the Square Enix store, and this is most likely applying to the PlayStation version.
Mm-hmm.
But the all-in-one package, which includes all of the games, all 3 bundles together, is $40. I don't see why that can't be the same on Steam.
I mean, if they did that, that would be perfect. I would absolutely
that would sell in droves if they did that.
So is that 40 including 3?
That's 40 including 3 and the DLC.
Wow. And you said, I'm sorry, you said where was that?
This is on the Square Enix online store.
But I'm guessing that's probably for like PS4, Xbox One.
Yeah, that's definitely what it seems like. Now, actually, one thing I actually should say is, I don't see. I do actually correct myself. I don't see the DLC Remind. I just see Kingdom Hearts 3 on here. But even still, like that would mean that. I mean, this is a bit of a stretch, but if you added $20 and made it a full $60,
right? You
could still sell like hotcakes.
Yeah, that would be I would be totally
everything.
Fine with that, but I can't see them doing that. Like, seriously, that's ridiculous. Now, I would hope that they'll do some type of promotion for when it first comes to Steam, and that there will be a significant discount, or not even significant, like 10-20% off, but they need to do a price that's reasonable. If they charge, $50 for 1 and 2, which, I mean, the crazy thing about that is that includes 4 games. Wait, no, that can't be right. Because
the 1.5, 2.5. That's
it includes 4 games.
Yeah, 1, 2.
Chain of Memories,
Birth by Sleep. Birth by Sleep.
Yeah, it includes 4 games for $50.
Yeah,
which, and then 2.8. It contains basically 1 game plus some cutscenes and a short prologue, and they charge $60 for it. Like, Dream Drop Distance isn't a bad game, but it's just
not $60 worth.
It's not $60. That's crazy. They need to have decent pricing, and I guess we'll just wait and see what it is and vote with our wallets accordingly. I mean, if it's too expensive, then I'll just wait. I mean, I've waited this long; it's not going to kill me. I can wait for a sale, or wait for like instant gaming or Fanatical or Green Man Gaming to have a sale on it, depending on which one of them has it listed. Because I probably could get a decent sale on it. Oh, I do want to say one thing real quick about Instant Gaming. They're kind of sketchy sometimes with their pricing. I mean, like, most of the time, okay, you get great discounts. But with the new games, they'll say that a game is 23% off, but they have the list price, the basic MSRP, as higher than the actual MSRP. So you're not actually getting that much of a percentage off. They're screwing with you, basically.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's like, just because they want to make it look like you're actually getting a higher percentage off from them. Because there was one time, I think it might have been maybe it was with Sifu. I can't remember if it was with Sifu or a different game, but I was looking at it, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to grab it here. And because it said it was 20 some odd percent off, but then I looked at it, it's like, wait, their base price is higher than it is actually listed. I think like they had the base game listed as being $40, even though it was only $30 if you bought it without a discount on Steam. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of sketchy. I mean, when you get down to the point that it's like $2 to $5, it doesn't matter. But for that other stuff, especially, I mean, honestly, I'm not really sure how legitimate Instant Gaming is. I'm a little, I don't know, I'm not entirely sure about them, but at the same time, it's like $2, $5 games. Anyway, enough about that. All right, I think we'll probably not do all of these topics tonight because it is getting pretty late, but I do want to lastly just talk about this IGN acquisition, because that is something we mentioned at the beginning here. So let me just read the article directly from IGN, as much as I dislike going to their site. IGN Entertainment has acquired the Gamer Network family of digital brands for an undisclosed sum. Gamer Network's publications include GamesIndustry.biz, Eurogamer, Rock Paper Shotgun, VG 24/7, and Dicebreaker. This business also holds shares in Outside Xbox, Digital Foundry, and Hookshot, which operates Nintendo Life, Push Square, Pure Xbox, and Time Extension. IGN Entertainment is a division of Ziff Davis that includes IGN, Map Genie, How Long to Beat, and Humble Bundle. It has acquired the brands from PAX and New York Comic Con organizer ReedPop, which initially bought the Gamer Network business in 2018. Not included in the sale are UK-based events EGX or MCM or the digital brand Popverse. Your thoughts?
I'm partially curious as to why they did this. Granted, I don't know how the gaming quote-unquote journalism side works as far as like business-wise, but I don't know why why they would acquire these divisions. I don't know why, because isn't essentially just pretty much buying the same thing you're already doing. I mean, technically, if you own Digital Foundry, Digital Foundry is a very reputable brand. So I can definitely understand having that in your portfolio. But as a whole, like, why do you need Games Industry Biz or Eurogamer or Rock Paper Shotgun? Because I feel like it's kind of redundant. You're pretty much buying what you're already doing anyway, so yeah. It feels like you're wasting a lot of money here. Doesn't make sense to me. Also you're just pretty much consolidating not every, but a lot of gaming sources all in one place, which is also kind of risky, because if IGN gets into any sort of financial straits, then that's going to impact a whole lot of divisions there. Just because they'll most likely possibly cut certain divisions, close different publications, and yeah, definitely doesn't make sense. Now, one thing actually I thought was very interesting, which I did not know, was that IGN owned How Long to Beat.
Yeah.
That's just like some random thing that I know. Sounds like that. I did not know that. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't like this. Granted, I didn't visit a lot of those sites, and the Digital Foundry thing. It looks like it's not that they actually own Digital Foundry. It's just that they have shares in things like Digital Foundry.
Mm-hmm.
But what I don't like about this, though, is IGN to me has been garbage for a long time. I used to really love IGN, but then they started bringing politics into their Nintendo podcasts or just their podcasts in general. It's like it stopped being about video games and started being about virtue signaling and all this other nonsense, and this is also, a site that has been very critical of like the Xbox acquisitions and about all the layoffs that have been happening. And it's like, we know that these same things are happening. I mean, for one, buying Gamer Network, it's a pretty significant consolidation when it comes to a gaming news site, even if you could hardly call IGN a gaming site anymore. But on top of that, it's just I just don't like it. I mean, this consolidation is not a good thing when it comes to these types of sites. It definitely reduces the amount of variety you're going to have in opinions and just how people address these kinds of topics. And I mean, granted, like I said, I avoid most of these. Like I've stayed away from IGN as much as humanly possible. Same thing with Eurogamer, because of the kind of trash that they put out. I don't even want to support them in any way, shape, or form. Which is a shame, because like I used to love Nintendo Voice Chat. That was one of my main podcasts I listened to every week. But then they started getting political and virtue signaling and all this other nonsense in their podcasts that are supposed to be about video games. The only thing that for a while there was still pretty good was IGN's Destiny show Fireteam Chat. That was still good because it was just about the game. That's what it was about, and they were talking about the video game. It's like that's what it's supposed to be. But all these other ones, like they're bringing all their personal politics into what they talk about. Anyway, I'm not going to rant about IGN anymore. I just want to say I don't like the fact that they're doing this. There's obviously going to be a bunch of layoffs. I mean, that's a reality of acquisitions. It's an unfortunate reality, and of course, IGN's not going to report on all the layoffs that they're doing with these acquisitions. They're just going to completely brush it under the rug. They're not even going to mention it. And yeah. Anyway, that's all I have to say. So, any other thoughts?
I'll just leave this statement. Can't spell ignorant without IGN.
Yep. All right. Well, let's go ahead and close out for the night, starting with our recommendations and dissuasions.
All right. So my recommendation, which we probably might be sharing this, is Ghost of Tsushima. It's a very good game, very fun game. Definitely a good PC port, so I definitely would recommend playing this game. It's fun. Even if you don't play the Legends mode or can't play the Legends mode, in my case, it's still a fun game, and I'm definitely enjoying it. And it was, like I said, it's worth the wait for the PC ports. So definitely play it if you're on PC, or if you have a PS5, buy it there. You know,
Yep.
if you have the platform, just play it.
Yep. Agreed. Well, my recommendation is actually going to be different, even though, of course, I wholeheartedly agree with your recommendation. Mine is going to be actually a brand of hot sauces called Yellow Bird. I think I had something else I was going to recommend, and I don't remember what it was because I didn't get a chance to write it down. But Yellow Bird, which of course that's mirrored, but Yellow Bird makes a variety of different hot sauces. My favorite of which that they make are both their habanero hot sauce as well as their ghost pepper hot sauce. Both really good. Good blend of little tiny bit of sweetness from like carrots and stuff. And then, spice according to the type of peppers. Habaneros obviously being much milder than ghost peppers, but still being much hotter than jalapenos. But yeah, really, really good stuff. I'm sure there was something else I was going to recommend, and I legitimately don't remember what it was. So that's where I'll leave that.
Now, was that a branded water bottle, or is that like a sticker on a water bottle?
No, it's just a sticker. Because I just got some ghost pepper hot sauce the other day. Just got my order and came with a sticker, so I stuck it on my water bottle.
Maybe this whole time you've actually just been drinking the hot sauce to clear your throat. Because you've now adapted to that.
I would die.
So you're just drinking that.
I would die. Yeah. All right, dissuasion.
My dissuasion is avoid Assassin's Creed Shadows for several different reasons. One is the pricing model, which is similar to Star Wars Outlaws, which we've covered in a previous episode. But also how they are handling the main character is, definitely one of the worst things that I've seen, and definitely was inappropriate for this scenario. So I definitely say avoid Assassin's Creed Shadows. If you want to play, a samurai game, you could be playing some Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, you could be playing that instead. Or if you want to feel like a ninja, you could play some Sekiro. So
my dissuasion, if I can remember what it was, don't buy a game on the Epic Games Store. If you are okay with doing Epic Games, period, then that's one thing. But if you're like we are, where we want to do everything we can to stay away from the Epic Games Store, don't give in and buy a game that is Epic exclusive, because it can still come over to Steam or GOG or whatever. You may still have an opportunity. It's better to just wait than to give in, because especially if you're someone who likes to play these games on a Steam Deck, it is much more of a pain to do so when you're having to go through Epic Games Store as opposed to just being able to do it directly from Steam. So don't do that. Kingdom Hearts has already proven to us that even though it took 3 years to get here, it is coming over. So even things like Alan Wake 2, which I certainly want to play, I'm waiting. And I'm not giving in, because I think it could still come over, even if it was funded by Epic. So there's that. All right. Where can people find you?
they can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon, IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. Put out a video earlier this week discussing Yasuke and my thoughts on that, as well as how Ubisoft could have presented him in a better manner than they did. So you can definitely go and check that out. And I wasn't entirely negative about it, right. So you can definitely see that's there. All
right. Well, you can find me on my YouTube channel youtube.com/at thefrozengamer87. I've been putting out, in general, weekly comparison videos, doing comparisons of the OLED screens with different games. So the most recent comparison I put out was Borderlands the pre-sequel, comparing the Switch version to the Steam Deck version. It's actually kind of a surprising comparison, because even though, of course, predictably, the Switch version is not quite as detailed in general, and lower frame rate, like I said, completely to be expected, what was surprising was the visual difference. The Switch version actually still looks really, really good. And some of the lighting, I think, is actually a little better, but I think it might just be because the Switch version is from the Handsome Jack collection, where they, upgraded it, I guess, between what was originally PS3 360 to the PS4 and Xbox One to port those up. So I think that's why it has slightly different coloring and lighting and that sort of thing. But then there's other spots where it's definitely like, okay, the detail is still better in the Steam version. But either way, it's still an interesting comparison. I know that this is not going to be one that performs super well in terms of views, because that's how it was with Borderlands 2 as well. I think people are less interested in that. If I ever get to do Borderlands 3, I think that one is one that will be much more interesting to people, because it's much newer. And also, Borderlands 3 is uncapped on the Switch. So I've heard that it actually does a pretty good job getting into 60s at times, and sometimes just in the 40s, but even still, it's interesting, that difference there. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, because I'm waiting for the physical version of Borderlands 3 to drop to a cheap enough price to make it worthwhile to buy, because I don't want to spend that much. But with that comparison being mentioned, the next comparison that's going to be going up is Diablo 2 Resurrected, and the week after that will be Diablo 3, the Eternal Collection. So that actually, no, now that I think about it, the Eternal Collection is specifically the is when you buy 3 and it comes with 2 as well. But anyway, I can't remember how that works. Anyway, the point is that I'll be doing Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 back to back, and then I have Sifu waiting in the wings to do as well. I may even just record that ahead of time, so that way it'll already be recorded, because I kind of want to go through that one, since that one actually really requires reflexes, whereas Diablo and stuff, yeah, it's not necessarily, at least with 2, it's not easy, but it doesn't require fast reflexes as much as it does just being careful. So anyway, there's those. I also have a cooking channel on YouTube, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's at NABD Cooking. That's also up on Twitter and Facebook. Although really the only place I do anything with it is YouTube. It's just the other two are just reposting the videos for people to see. The most recent recipe I put out was for carnitas, which is a Mexican pulled pork. If you have never had it, it's incredibly delicious. And I know mine is not exactly authentic in terms of ingredients, or at least one of the ingredients, but the flavor is just so good, and it's actually doing really well. I was surprised. I don't know if it could just be a glitch, but it was saying that I actually had like 200 some odd likes on the video, which is weird, because usually, even if I get, even the videos where I've gotten 1,000 views, like my brisket recipe, hardly any likes. But this one, it said like I have 200 some odd likes, and it's just like, wow, either it's a glitch on the YouTube Studio front, or it's actually like, okay, people like the recipe, I'm all for it. I did pull down my jerk chicken recipe because I got a comment on it, someone pointing out a couple things about just the initial preparation for the marinade, just how I did some of the things I did with that they said made them just click off the video. And so I decided what I'm going to do with that one is I'm actually going to re-record that part of making the marinade. in using the suggestions they gave, and then I will splice that in place of the original part, and then re-upload the video with that in there, because I don't want something like that to be a distraction to where someone doesn't even watch the rest of the recipe, because really the recipe is good. It's just obviously that I did some things in terms of how I prepared it that were distracted to at least one person. And, you know, I know not everybody's going to be distracted by that, but it bothers me too that I did that I made the mistakes I did. So I'm just going to fix that. But the thing is that will be good out of that is that I will also use that portion that I'm going to re-record and add it to any additional future recipes I do with jerk chicken. Like, one of the things I want to do is a jerk chicken Alfredo pizza.
Ooh.
And a jerk chicken Alfredo pasta probably as well, because I think that those things will be very, very good. But I mean, like, jerk chicken plus Alfredo, so you got that creamy Parmesan based sauce and the spice of the jerk chicken. I might even do that this Friday. I haven't, well, I probably can't because my niece and nephews are going to be joining us for dinner. So anyway, regardless, I'm planning to do it sometime soon, and then I'll include that with all that. So anyway, yeah, but good stuff. And of course, you can find our podcast. You can find us on YouTube if you're listening right now through one of the many podcast services. We have a full video version of the podcast up on YouTube, youtube.com/@theorangeboxpodcast. You can also find us on Twitter @theorangeboxpod. You can find us on Facebook. Facebook, I really just repost the video of the podcast, and that's it. But I'm on Twitter usually like once or twice a week for, you know, going through stuff. And of course, obviously, I repost the video version of the podcast as well. Oh yes, and then of course, if you want to contact us, apart from Twitter and Facebook, as previously mentioned, you can also send us an email, theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to get back to you if you're a listener. I know there are some listeners out there. I don't know how many of them are listening regularly versus just once in a great while, but we'd love to hear from you. So, you know, please be sure that you contact us if you'd like. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, whatever you have for us. But that's all I got. So, any final thoughts?
Nothing else.
All right. Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast, and until next time, eat something spicy. Orange Box Podcast out.